Hey, what is going on? Welcome to this episode number 191 of Life and Lessons. I'm Sean Spooner, and if you're new here, here's what you need to know. This podcast is the place where I share the life lessons I wish I knew sooner in my 20s, sometimes on my own, and sometimes joined by the most interesting people I know. The only thing that's guaranteed with this podcast is that every time you press play, you're going to learn something new. Now, hope you're well. Hope you've had a good week since we were last here like this, catching up. If you're watching on YouTube, if you can see this video, I have once again just finished a park run. So I am once again looking very disheveled because I have once again not showered since I left the park run and got here to record this. So apologies if I look rough. If you're listening, it's fine. You won't be able to see. This will probably be a quick one today. I want to do two things. Number one, just give you a very quick update as to where I have been and what I've been up to this week. And then number two, share a handful of ideas that have been in my mind this week. Just think out loud and hopefully you get some value from it. So where have I been? I have, like I said, just got back from a park run, which I did in 22 minutes and 42 seconds, which is my fastest 5K by far. I think my average quick 5K time is 24 minutes 30. My fastest ever 5K time prior to today is something like 23 minutes 50. So I shaved over a whole minute off of today's PB, which I think it all came down to mindset, to be honest. I went into it deciding that it was going to be a PB, and the first 2 kilometers were fast and they felt okay. The third kilometer was really difficult. Kilometer 4, I was just kind of counting down the meters at that point. I think I looked at my watch at 3.6k, and I'm like, right, I just need to get to the end straight, and then it's not too bad. And then the last 800 meters, I was using a guy in a green top in front of me who had the park run 250 green tank top on. So he's done at least 250 park runs, and he was running at a pace which was slightly more than I was kind of redlining at, if that makes sense. So I thought if I can just keep him in sight, if I can make sure that I don't lose view of him, I'm going to get this in a reasonably quick time. And I managed to keep hold of him the whole time. And then with 800 meters to go, he started walking. And I'm like, this is terrible news. Who am I going to follow now? And then the mind games begin, and every piece of me was saying stop. And my heart rate was up at, I think, 204 BPM it maxed out at, which is crazy and way over what my max heart rate should be for my age. And then did the final few meters, stopped my watch, saw that it began with a 22, and I was like, whoa, that's crazy. So I'm very happy with that. I think, dare I say, that in amongst all of the marathons and marathon training and everything, which is really going to be coming to a head in the next few weeks, I think before the end of the year, I have a 21 minute something second 5K in me, which would be mad if I do, because that would be like a whole 12 minutes faster than my first ever 5K, and a good 5 minutes faster, give or take, than this time last year. Anyway, that was lots of times and numbers. I'm not sure if you could keep up. Long story short, did a very fast park run. And on Wednesday, just gone, I did another 5K in London. I went over to Stratford. I was in London for a couple of days on Wednesday and Thursday, and I saw the Gymshark, who normally do their Gymshark Run Club from Regent Street on a Tuesday. I was like, it's annoying that I'm not here on Tuesday. I can't go along to that. Turns out they do a separate Gymshark Run Club on a Wednesday from their Stratford store. So I went over there on the Elizabeth line, which was the coldest and coolest part of London because it has aircon, and it was very hot in London that day. And I took part in that run club, and it was good fun. It was nice vibes. It was cool to speak to complete strangers on the run. And again, use somebody as an unofficial pacer to keep me moving at a pace faster than that which was comfortable, to encourage me to get the best time I could. I thought on that Wednesday run, because of the vibes, because of the group, because it was a really nice surrounding running around Olympic Park, the West Ham Stadium, I thought that I would have it in the bag, and the heat thought otherwise. It was, I think at 6:30 p.m, it was still 28 degrees when that run started. And again, the first 2K, they were okay. They were a quick pace. Third kilometer was difficult. Fourth kilometer was as painful as every fourth kilometer is. And then with 800 meters to go. It's always that wall I hit when I've been really redlining. I started walking, not even by choice, not consciously by choice. I just looked down and I'd stopped running because the mind had kind of beaten the body. The body could have kept going, right? And something in my mind just instinctually was like, stop. So I only walked for a few seconds, but I walked for a few seconds nonetheless. And then between the heat and the fact that I, for whatever reason, started walking, by the time I got in, it was like a 24-minute, 24-second time, which wasn't my fastest, but it was good fun. And if I'm in London on Tuesday or a Wednesday in the future, I'll go along to their run clubs because they are fun. I think that's it. What I've been up to this week, really. Just lots of work and runs. On Monday, just gone, I sat down and recorded another episode with Rory Sutherland, which was good fun and will be out this time next week. I had an idea to talk to Rory about the kind of behavioral science of self-improvement, and I had like 6 or 7 kind of themes that I wanted to run through. But as anybody who's listened to Rory think out loud knows, there are lots of kind of avenues that you go down which are tangentially related to the question, but also in no way related to the kind of core of the question. And so it got to like 10 minutes before when we had to wrap. We had covered one area, so I just switched it on its head and asked about some more interesting things, and then we overran slightly. So it turned out being about an hour long. It's a really interesting conversation, and it will be out this time next week if you would like to listen. It's not, is it about self-improvement? I don't know. It's not what it was going to be about, but it is interesting nonetheless. So that's the update. That's where I've been. And then in a minute, once I finish this and recorded some little lessons, I'm going to go to Devon for a few days. Random, I know. And then tomorrow I have a 24-kilometer long run. So that'll be fun, particularly if it's hot. But it'll be nice surroundings, I suppose. The kind of Devon coastline from Torquay up to somewhere 24 kilometers away. I'm trying to think what it's called. No idea. I do not know that part of the world, but it's basically a coastal path that I'm just going to follow until I've done 24k and then stop. So that's where I have been. That's what I've been up to. Let me share these 3 ideas that I've been thinking about this week with you. So the first one, there was, I believe, a little lesson about last week, and it is that winners don't realize that they're winning half the time. Now, this actually came about from a conversation with somebody I know a few months ago, when they were complaining about kind of how stable their life was, and as such they felt that they didn't have the chance to like focus on content more or like spend more time doing their side hustle or their hobby. But in telling me that they didn't have time to do that, they explained a whole bunch of things that were true about their life that most people would really like to have, right? Like the stable lifestyle and the comfortable 9 to 5 and the mortgage with a nice house and the partner that they're probably going to marry and all of the time on the weekend to go and spend time with their family and all this stuff, right? And it made me think that in front of me during this conversation was somebody who was winning, but due to either comparing themselves to others or focusing on the small handful of things which they didn't have rather than all of that which they did, had convinced themselves that they were not a winner. And I guess in many ways, this is just me reframing the idea of gratitude. But I think once you realize just how many areas of your life you're winning in, it allows you not only to be more grateful for what you have, but also to use that as a foundation to build upon, right? Because we're so quick, myself included, to single out the small handful of things that we're not so good at or that aren't going so well. I mean, even last week, right, when I was talking about the idea that progress in the moment is invisible, I was hovering around this theme that there are things from my kind of list of goals this year which I'm either running behind on or things which I probably won't manage to do. I didn't tell you about the areas where I'm outperforming my expectations or having a really good time or things are just going really well. I chose, as we all do, to have this negativity bias and focus on the few things that weren't going so well. And if you're doing that at the expense of realizing that you have so much already, you're essentially never going to be happy, right? Because let's pretend that you already have a nice house and a comfortable job and perfect health and enough disposable income to go on 2 holidays a year, right? You already have that and you're not happy because you want a partner, say you want a boyfriend or a girlfriend to do it with. And then 6 months from now, you've got that boyfriend or girlfriend, but the honeymoon phase is over and it's a little bit kind of, you've forgotten how special it is and how grateful you are to have that person. So then you have all of those things, but you're sat on Instagram feeling bad because you don't have abs, right? All the while, the guy who posted a picture of abs on Instagram is sat at home feeling shit about his life because he doesn't have the job and the perfect health and the disposable income to go on 2 holidays a year and the boyfriend or girlfriend that you so badly wanted 6 months ago. If you're continually in this cycle of finding the reasons why you're losing rather than cheering on the reasons why you're winning, you're never going to feel like a winner. And I don't mean you're not going to feel like a winner in this moment now. I mean, you're never going to feel like a winner. You have to realize, and yes, keep going, right? Keep pushing, keep trying difficult things, keep seeing where you can end up, but all the while realize that there are areas of your life that you're doing incredibly well in already, or else you will be miserable. And I don't know many productive people who are miserable, right? I don't know many people who hold on to misery whilst also being happy or content or enjoying their life. So there is zero value in the opposite and almost unlimited upside in just realizing that you're probably already winning. It's just that most winners don't realize that they're winning. Now, let me take this in a completely different direction for the second thing that I've been thinking about this week, because I think these two ideas can coexist. They just sound a little bit contradictory. So, of course, if you're a winner in so many areas of life, you should focus on those good parts, right? But of course, if you're into self-improvement and you want to improve things, there's always going to be this list of things that you could be improving. Now, there is this tendency, and I speak about this with Rory in the conversation that you'll hear next week, that many people who are into self-improvement or expect a lot of themselves or have big ambitions look to optimize and hyper-optimize almost every area of their life, right? It's how these people who are seemingly neglecting one thing over there that's probably quite important are the same people who are doing like cold plunges and red light therapy and avoiding their phone for 4 hours before bed, right? They're focusing so much, they're optimizing so much on the things that they've already got nailed, right? They're probably doing fairly well with their health, so they don't need to hyper-optimize that, but then they're like painfully unconfident, or their finances are a mess, or they're not focusing on career progression, or any number of things that they're currently ignoring. And I've been thinking more and more recently about this idea that when it comes to self-improvement, you should focus primarily on the things that you're terrible at first, rather than trying to focus more on the things that you're okay at. And what I mean by that is going from terrible to average with social skills. For example, if you have terrible social skills right now, going from this is painful to actually I can kind of hold a conversation now will have so much more upside in your life for decades to come than going from like a 96% to a 99% sleep score on Whoop, right? Trying to hyper-optimize these pointless little top 5% things in your life whilst neglecting other areas isn't self-improvement. It's this kind of weird way to avoid actually tackling difficult things. I think that self-improvement, I think that your pursuit to improve yourself in life, whatever that means for you, should center around the things that you currently don't have in control. Is it that credit card that you're ignoring? Is it the fact that you haven't been on a date in 2 years and you wouldn't know how to even begin getting one? Is it that you hate your job but you're doing nothing about it, right? There are going to be things that are bad. And going from bad to average in loads of areas of life is way better than having a bunch of bad bits of your life and then being really good at sleeping or really good at lifting weights or really good at, writing email newsletters. Like, yes, be very good at some things, but don't aim for the top 1% of like a tiny handful of areas of life and neglect everything else, because and it could just be that the most controversial takes float to the top on the internet. But I see so many people who spend so many hours of their life that they are never going to get back on these pointless pursuits that look cool, right? I'm sure there's so much value in the Wim Hof breathing method for 20 minutes every morning. I'm sure there is. But you'd probably be better to just fucking tackle your inbox for 20 minutes. Does that make sense? Like if you're terrible at replying to messages, or you're falling behind in work, or you always miss deadlines, or you're not making enough money, go and sit on your laptop for 20 minutes rather than breathing and feeling good about the fact that I did the Wim Hof thing, or I sat in an ice bath, or I sat in front of some red light therapy, or I went on my Peloton. Like, if your health's okay, focus on other areas. If other areas are okay at the expense of your health, focus on your health. Self-improvement should be about improving yourself, not optimizing for pointless metrics to feel good about yourself, and in doing so, ignoring other areas of your life, if that makes any sense. And then the third thought, which again is kind of related as these things always are, but it also isn't, is that I think it's important for us to stop every now and then and realize that even if nobody else is keeping score, you are. You're keeping score of yourself. And in many ways, you're the only person that you can't lie to, right? If you told yourself you were going to wake up at 7 a.m. today and you did, then congratulations. If you didn't, nobody's going to really know unless you sleep in the same bed as somebody and you told them out loud that you were going to do it. Nobody knows. Nobody's keeping score. Nobody is judging you or holding you accountable or is going to pull you up when you don't do the things you say you're going to do. But you know, and you're the only person who can and will, right? And I think it's really important sometimes to actually keep score, to actually lean into the idea that there's a list of things that you expect yourself to do by default, right? Things like, I don't know, maybe making your bed in the morning, like drinking enough water. There are then things that you expect yourself to do as kind of, it would be good to improve X skill, speaking to strangers or lifting more weights. And then there are these things that you know you really want to avoid, right? You should stop vaping. You don't want to drink alcohol for 100 days, whatever it is. Nobody really cares about this stuff. Like in the nicest way possible, nobody other than you cares whether you drink this weekend. Nobody other than you really cares if you're going to quit smoking. Nobody other than you cares whether or not you're going to spend 6 hours on TikTok this weekend. They don't care. They're not keeping score. But you can be. And actually more than just you can be, whether you like it or not, you are keeping score. The tiny decisions that you make every day, whether or not to stick to your word in the privacy of your own head when only you knew that you were going to do this thing, whether you do or not, right? These tiny decisions, they compound, and not in days or weeks, but in months and years, they decide whether you become the person you knew you always could be, became the person that you want to become. And you're keeping score, right? You can't bullshit yourself. You know whether you're doing it. Like even today, literally right now today, if I were to ask you to think of an example of something that you told yourself you were going to do, and you either did or didn't do, you can think of an example. Did you take the bins out before having an argument with your partner about it? Did you close your laptop at 5:30 and not sit on it all night scrolling? Did you put your phone down an hour before bed? Did you drink enough water? Did you do the things that you said you were going to do? Because you're keeping score regardless. And if you did, you begin to trust yourself more. And somebody who trusts themselves is somebody who expects more of themselves and who gets more out of life. Whereas the opposite is also true. If you continually break your own word, if you continually ignore the promises you made to yourself and make excuses and just kind of turn a blind eye when you're a bit of a waste man, you're keeping score. And there is nothing worse for somebody who wants to improve their life from whatever position you're beginning at than somebody who doesn't trust themselves to do the things they say they were going to do. Because when you do that, you're losing trust in the only person who has the power to change your life. Because that person is you. Nobody else cares, right? And you might think they do. People might give you words of encouragement when things are going well, or they might sit with you and try and, talk you out of a bad mood when things are particularly bad. But ignoring the extremes on either end, many days of your life, most days of your life are going to be you versus you, and you're always going to be keeping score. So make sure that you're actually scoring the point you want to, rather than pretending that you're not playing the game. And I think that is all I have. I think this was quite a quick one. I can never tell. If you've been here for a while, you'll realize that every episode is normally like the same length. And yet every episode I'm like, this one felt short, this one felt long. They're always like 20 to 25 minutes. Anyway, thank you as always for listening. I'm going to go and edit this, record some little lessons, pack a bag, and then drive to Torquay for a couple of days. Whatever you're doing this week, I hope you have a good week. And I'll see you back here this time next week for episode number 192 of Life and Lessons. See you then.